Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Yeah. And welcome to tonight. So exciting to have you all with us. So excited and exciting to have these young women on the stage with me. My name is Leah Teklemariam. I'm the Director of Programs at the Stephen Lewis Foundation. I actually just want to start by acknowledging a few people that are in the audience tonight in the front row, and I'm just going to ask them to stand quickly and to just give a wave to the crowd. We have Joseph, stand up. Joseph Nkurunziza, who's the Director of Programs at St. Francis Healthcare Services. Woo! We have Frida Mplasana, the head nurse and health manager at Cotlands in South Africa. We have Hombisa Nsakanye, counselor and child psychologist at the Blue Roof Life Space in South Africa. And we have Julia Natima, who is the division director of psychosocial support department at MUJHU in Uganda. I also want to acknowledge three people who are not here with us, who we hope to be here. Esther Nabiro from St. Francis Healthcare Services, and Sarah Nasalo and Sunday Okulo from Reach Out Mbuya in Uganda, who were not, whose visas to Canada were denied. So that was an unfortunate thing, and we are all, unfortunately without their voices this evening, but their voices and work were shown in the film. But we're so excited to be here with Ruth and Aziwe and excited to get things going. So shall we get started?
Yes,
My sister,
please.
shall we get started?
Sure.
So this is not the first time you've seen this film, but the first time with an audience. And so I just wanted to start with how that felt to you, how it felt to you to see your work, your peers, and your other sisters from other organizations, and them represented. Ruth, do you want to start us off?
Sure, I'll start. Having this video here really felt satisfying, I should say, because most times we do a lot of work, but it's kept in the dark there just to our communities, and yet people here need to know what young people are capable of doing. So having this video here with an audience, sharing the work that we do, sharing the impact that is already happening in the grassroots communities has been really satisfying to me and impressive, I should say.
Oh, beautiful. Aziwe?
Yeah, just to add on to what Ruth has said, it's so fulfilling, should I say, to see that our work is at least being recognized even from where we are, like out of Uganda, out of South Africa, and other people get to experience, or should I say, see how hard we work to get through these thick skulls of youth. So, yeah.
And it's beautiful. I mean, watch out world, because you're celebrities now, movie stars now, and this film is a composite of footage from films that you both and all of the 5 organizations created for your own communities, for your own work, kind of all strung together. I wondered if you could just talk a little bit about the process of making those films, how involved you were, how you came up with the stories that. We just saw a brief snapshot of them here.
Yeah. I would like to first applaud whoever put this together, because
Alex George, our editor, is in here. There he is at the back. He gets a big shout out. Thank you.
Because I believe it wasn't an easy task. I take it back to our ground. I remember we were called together as young people, were told, now here is the chance you've always wanted to tell the world about the work you do. So we're supposed to identify what you're going to talk about, what do you feel like you're comfortable sharing. And trust me, zeroing down to one topic each person was not easy. So I'm thinking of how he had to put all that together. But back to the question, we sat down as a group, decided, because we do a lot of work, and we always want to give each young person an equal opportunity. So we sat down as a group, put out the things that we do, and each one of us was assigned why you feel more comfortable talking, why you feel you've been very much engaged. So we decided, Ruth, will talk about sexual reproductive health, you will talk about stigma and discrimination, you will talk about adherence. And then we were because this is the work that we usually do. So when the media guys, the people who are doing the video, they could come through in our activities. I think you saw one of the sessions as it was being run, but the film was being covered. So this was done on ground in the actual activities. And also it took them time to reach different places that we wanted them to cover, because you'll find that some of them had to be covered at home taking their pills, some of us had to be covered in offices, some of us had to be covered in schools. So I should say it wasn't an easy thing, but doing what you love made it easier because we're doing it out of passion. Yeah.
Thank you. Aziwe, yeah, you can see that passion for sure. Aziwe.
For me, it was a kind of a different story. In the video, there's not much of the whole of the support group, you know, engaging together. It's just myself and two other fellow brothers of mine. We just were informed, got a call and got told that we just have to do a little movie, a little film of how is it that we operate here in Blue Roof. And we selected ourselves, myself and the two fellow brothers of mine. And I went on to the where there's a part where I'm walking, getting my file, there's a part where I'm engaging with my counselor, and there's a part where my other fellow brother is just in his space and dancing, and there's a part where this other guy is in a career center. So those are the basic top things that we enjoy doing. But for me, it was not really my first time kind of getting filmed at showing what I do. I just have another documentary of my own aside whereby I just show as to how I take my meds and how I go to school and what is it that I like to do. But yeah, that's how it operated. Yeah.
So, I mean, as we can see here tonight and on the film, you know, you both are so confident and comfortable speaking what is a deeply personal topic for you, a deeply, you know, moving experience, pivotal experience in your own lives and families and in your work. So I'm wondering if you can take us back to the first time you felt compelled or comfortable speaking about your HIV status publicly, and a little bit about your journey and what took you to that point and to this point that we see you today, so, you know, empowered and inhabiting this confidence that, I mean, we all wish we had. So maybe Aziwe, do you want to talk about your
Firstly,
journey?
I'm 20 years old currently, and I first started having the desire of coming out into the world and disclosing my status at the age of 17. But before that, like 16, 15, 14, I had obviously my role models amongst the support groups. I'm like, you know, that guy, I love his confidence. I like her confidence. So what made me have the eager into even wanting to come out was the fact that I saw that in my community, I think there should be something that should be done. And I think the main person is a woman should actually come out and do what most people fear to do. And the very first time I disclosed my status was at a school that is not very far from where I live. And I remember I was invited to this school, and my mother was like, are you really sure you want to go to the school and disclose your status? I mean, most people who go to that school, they know you. And I was like, I am 1,000,000.5 sure, Mom, so I am gonna go. And that made me even want to go even more. The fact that most people were like, do you want to go, you know? And I have someone in my life, and she said to me, I feel like you are afraid of what it is that you're doing, coming out, disclosing your status, but you have the courage, and that's what it takes. It takes courage. Am I wrong, Ruth, or am I right? No, am I right or am I right? So it takes courage to actually do what we do. It does, because we face a lot of stigma.
Yeah.
We do. But yeah, what eagered me was the fact that I had people pointing out at my support group, and I said, I want to be like her, and I should do this. And I felt it was the right thing to do, which I still do feel like it's the right thing to do, and we still need to do more of it. And young people should do it. Okay. And it makes sense that if you talk to a young person, it makes sense if a young person talks to a young person. So if you had to say that take your ARVs to a 17-year-old, she's going to be like...
Because I'm not a young person. So, don't we all know this? Yeah.
So if I had to say it, and I'd be like, listen, take your ARVs, I'm taking them. So it would kind of make sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so just to differ from her, I got to know my status when I was 10 years old. And at that age in Uganda, it's when they tell you HIV is a killer. When you're HIV positive, you won yourself a death ticket, you won't live long. So it was really a nerve-wracking session for me. Even considering the way I found out, I just forced my mother to tell me. She wasn't prepared for it, and I wasn't prepared for the information. I was just being stubborn. I said, I will not take the medicine, save if you tell me why I'm taking it. So I refused to take the medicine, and she just told me, out of a blue, Ruth, you're HIV positive. At that moment, I felt really bad. I felt like it was the end. I felt like all the dreams I had were shattered. But because of I was part of the group, the MUJHU Young Generation Alive group. So when I looked there, we had by then it was only one person who had graduated. And they were talking about it. Many young people were talking about their status, sharing their experiences. So that's how I managed to cope up with life. And when I also got the courage, that was around 12 years, 13, I was like, I think I can help someone else because I was helped. So it felt more like giving back what I was given. Mm-hmm. So I felt like I should help more young people because I was helped through the same situation. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's...
Aziwe used a very powerful word, and that word was courage. Mm-hmm. And I think you're absolutely right, disclosing status, your HIV status, took a lot of courage. And as we saw in the film, and as you've spoken about beautifully, it's not just a one-time event. It's continual. You also have to think about it in the course of a relationship. At what point do you disclose? And so I'm just wondering if you think more about that disclosure, disclosing your HIV status, the stigma around it. What advice you have for parents and caregivers as they think about disclosing a child's HIV status to them? And, you know, and then on the flip side, maybe if one of your peers came to you and said, I'm thinking of sharing my HIV status with someone else, like what are some of the different issues for caregivers and maybe for young people as they navigate that really difficult issue and may not feel as courageous as you do? Yeah,
aside from Blue Roof Life Space, I have a job, and it also is related to HIV and going to schools and to the community. So I have this school, and I have learners who come to me and they would say, ma'am, they call me ma'am.
You never get used to it. Never.
So they would be like, ma'am, I'm HIV positive, I was born with it, and I don't know how to tell my boyfriend, or I don't know how to tell my girlfriend. So it's very difficult. It's really not easy. So firstly, the first thing that I would ask, like I would ask them what I asked myself before disclosing my status to my partner. So I would say, looking at the person that you're in a relationship with, how is his mindset? Do you think, are you disclosing your status to him because you feel like it's the right thing to do? Or are you disclosing it because you feel guilty into staying in a relationship with someone yet they don't know your status? And obviously we get different responses, but some of them, they were like, I would rather not tell him and rather just use protection, but just leave him not knowing as to am I positive or am I negative? So we would give different advices for different responses.
Yeah, but also she talked about parents and disclosing.
Yeah.
Considering the way I found out about my status, I wasn't prepared. And this comes back to parents, this comes back to the health workers, this comes back to people who are around us. I feel like young people should be prepared. They should be prepared before this, I call it a bomb, is put onto them. Because if you just tell me, Ruth, you're positive, without telling me the other things of, okay, you can be like this, or preparing me for learning about it, then you've not helped me. Because at that moment, I felt like it was the end of it. But had I been prepared, had I been taught about these things earlier on, or had my mother have been engaged on how she can tell me, like, you can first introduce that topic to her like this, I feel like it would have been much easier. And then for a young person who would like to disclose their status, I would say it's not an easy thing. I would make them first see both sides of it. because disclosure is not something that you can just come out and be like, I'm HIV positive. It has its own repercussions. So one thing I would always look at too is to make this young person look at both sides, the good side of disclosing and also the other side that has its own negative repercussions. Because yes, we feel like we've done a lot, but there are still ignorant people in the communities who will stigmatize you to an extent of isolating you from the community. So young people need to be prepared for both things to happen, either good or bad, before they disclose.
Just to add on to that, Ruth, it's just so sad how you get educated about HIV from primary, the basics of it, from high school clinics, you get awarenesses from that, radios everywhere. Us, we educate them, and yet you get these ignorant people who are just, I don't know, they're just not wanting to absorb into the whole thing that HIV does exist, and that if you are HIV positive, it is okay. There's no need for you to think of yourself less of a man if you are a guy, less of a woman if you are a woman. So it's just a bit sad, and you get these idiots that who like me, Ruth, I've come across whereby I would disclose my status to someone I'm in a relationship with, and then he would be like, I'm sorry, I can't stay with you anymore after you telling me this. And it's just so sad. So
that comes back to
you have to be
us,
ready for those type of things.
because it shows that despite all that we're doing, we still need to do a lot.
Yeah.
Because the ignorant people are still there. People who haven't been reached with the information, as you say, that we've shared out are still there. So
Yeah.
this comes back to us. This comes back to everyone who is here. We still have a lot to do.
So in thinking about that and thinking about that stigma, what have you found is the best way of dealing with that stigma? What successes have you had, or?
One thing about dealing with stigma is self-appreciation, I should say. Because before you accept yourself, before you be like, okay, this happened, but I'm still me. I still have my breath. I still have a life. Like, besides taking meds every day, I still be like anyone else. So it comes back to self-appreciation, and then the world will come, because you're not supposed to be loved by anyone anyway, because even those who are HIV negative are hated for some weird reasons we don't know. So being HIV positive should actually, sometimes we stigmatize ourselves, I should say. You'd be like, okay, I'm HIV positive, I can't go to school because, yeah, I may not even graduate. Or sometimes you'd be like, I'm HIV positive, I feel like I'm not strong enough to play football. So it comes back to us. Stigma sometimes starts with us before it goes down to the communities, because we are the ones who show the world what we are capable of, and that's why we are standing out to break those beliefs people have about us, to break what people thought about young people living with HIV, that they can't take lead, that they can't do this or do that. That way, if we appreciate ourselves, take up the steps, do everything people thought we couldn't do, then they'll have no reason to stigmatize us. Yeah, that's what I feel like.
Yeah, and you are right. Like, people stigmatizing themselves does exist. I mean, I lost my brother this year on the 25th of June because he was HIV positive. He wasn't born with it, but he was HIV positive, and he just refused to accept his status. He just instantly, he looked down on himself. He said that he's not gonna allow his life to depend on a pill. So we would give him so many reasons to live. I mean, you have a 1-year-old daughter, you have me, your little sister, you have mom, you have so many people that still want to be with you, and they were like, if you came here from home to hospital and to tell me to take my ARVs, then I would rather to ask you to please leave. So stigmatizing yourself does exist. But for me, I have this I don't care attitude. So if you gonna think that, oh my gosh, she's HIV positive, man, go fly a kite. So
I hope someone's tweeting that right now.
And then lastly, one of the biggest drivers of stigma and discrimination, I should say, is ignorance.
Yeah.
Because people in the communities don't know about these things.
yeah,
They feel like if you're HIV positive, you can't do that. Or if I share a glass with Ruth, I'll contract the virus. So the other thing that we have to do is breaking that ignorance so that people can be aware and then stop doing all that they're doing.
And Aziwe touched on an interesting issue, and I think very relevant for young people, is around dating you know, as teenagers enter that age, dealing with issues of sex and
Yeah,
relationships.
take a bit of sip.
Yeah, have a sip. Have a sip.
Yeah.
Cheers. So,
Supposed to refreshen up. That's a hot one.
Yeah.
so, you know, I just wondered if you had any thoughts on it. You know, you don't have to speak about your personal situations, but just it's a big issue and a tough one. As you know, as you say, you can live long, happy, vibrant lives, staying on treatment, and so I'm sure navigating the questions of having kids and getting married, if that's something you want or not, or don't want, you know, those are all questions that I'm sure young people come to terms with or grapple with, and I just wanted to see what y'all thought about sex and dating.
Well, when I got told my status at the age of 14, but I started my ARVs way before that, but I got told at the age of 14, the first thing I thought of was my future. And as soon as I was told that I'm HIV positive, the first thing I thought of was, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to have children? Am I even going to get someone who's going to love me for who I am and for my status after them knowing my status? So it's the first thing that came into my mind. I don't know about your mind, but it's the first thing that came into my mind. But obviously, after getting educated about it, you start saying, oh, it actually is possible. So getting into the dating industry, if I put it that way, it's very difficult.
It is an industry.
Yeah, it is an industry. Getting into the dating industry as an HIV positive person is very difficult because you have to disclose your status to the person. So you don't know whether the person, after you disclosing your status to them, it's either he's going to reject you or accept you. And I've been rejected. So I've been rejected, and I also have friends who've been rejected. But I remember recently, not recently, but recently, this guy broke up with me because, I'm sorry, I'm going all personal. This guy rejected me because of my status, and I have a friend of mine who's also HIV positive who I met at Blue Roof, because remember, that's where we'll meet the HIV positive young people, who I met there, and I said, hey friend, you know, this guy broke up with me because I told him my status, and my friend was like, I'm so sorry, but I told you to not tell him. So it is that kind of issue whereby some people just choose to not disclose their statuses to other people because they are afraid of rejection. So it's very sad.
Yeah, just like any other young kid. Everyone, when you start watching those movies, the fantasy movies, you dream of a happy family. You dream of having your kids, your Prince Charming, but sometimes life changes around.
Yeah.
When you're getting about my status, sometimes you'd be like, will I be able to date?
Yeah.
Will I be able to get someone who will love me for who I am?
Yeah.
And most times, we tell young people that at one point or the other, you will have to disclose.
Yeah.
Because you will not be hiding your status forever. You will need support, emotional support sometimes. And you don't choose who you fall in love with, for crying out loud. So you can fall in love with someone who is HIV positive. You can fall in love with someone who is HIV negative. So what we usually tell these young people is that you should always love yourself first. Because people have to love you for who you are. If you keep on hiding your status because you're HIV positive, then if you hide your status, you go into dating, someone finds out, that's another issue. And we always tell these young people that even when you're dating, you can still date someone who is HIV negative. I mean, a lot of interventions are there. You've heard about people who have had their viral loads down, like the virus is known that in their blood, and they can still date someone who is HIV negative, and their chances of infecting them are really low. In Uganda, we have a lady who I really look up to. She has 4 children now, one of which is 22 years older than me, and all the 4 are HIV negative. The lady is HIV positive, and the husband for all that time is HIV negative. So this shows that you can still date whoever you fall in love with. Or it's HIV positive, it's okay. Or it's HIV negative, it's still fine. There are interventions.
Yeah. Absolutely. And as you say, you know, as the research shows, if someone is adhering to treatment and staying on it, that means that they're, you know, the level of the virus in their blood makes it, you know, very difficult to transmit HIV. So you know, as you've spoken about, HIV is not just a medical issue. You're, you know, beautifully touching on it now, how there are emotional and social dimensions of the response and the impact. And I wonder, you know, thinking about your work with MUJHU and with Blue Roof, if you can think about what ways you kind of work on those levels too, the psychosocial programs and support that is most important for young people living with HIV.
Blue Roof is, what should I say, was first a space whereby anyone knew that, okay, Blue Roof focuses on people who are HIV positive only. So it's an HIV positive zone. So it was just known, which is, for some people who were in Blue Roof, it was kind of, I don't want people to know that I go to Blue Roof, because obviously as soon as they know, they will definitely put one and one, one and one. But then Blue Roof kind of did an amazing thing. They changed the life space into also a youth-friendly space whereby anyone now who is a young person can walk in. As you saw that there are different things that we're exposed to. You can just walk into Blue Roof coming from school, and maybe you're in grade 9 and you're struggling to choose your subjects, and you just go to the career guidance and you just see what is available, and you can just learn more about your career. Or you're a dancer, you can just go dance. So now it's no more of HIV. It's just a youth-friendly space, but obviously it doesn't remove or doesn't forget its focus. So Blue Roof has played a huge impact in my life, and it has definitely groomed me. What was your question?
Well, keep going around the psychosocial support that Blue Roof offers. Like, break it down. I think here it can be difficult to really understand what psychosocial support looks like.
I definitely got support from Blue Roof. I mean, as soon as I was told my status, I mean, my fellow, I call every nurse their mom. My fellow mothers, they were there from day one. They counseled me, and definitely my mother, because my mother didn't disclose my status. She didn't tell me my status. A doctor did. My mother, she says that she was just too afraid to tell me, and besides, I didn't ask. I never asked. I just used to ask myself what are these medications for? What are they for? So this other day we had an appointment, and our doctor told me. So the support system I got from Blue Roof was from day one, still getting it. So yeah, and from my fellow peers. Yeah.
And from MUJHU, I should say we look at a very comprehensive package, because we look at young people both infected and affected by HIV, because in the HIV world, you're either infected or affected. At least you've lost an auntie, a brother, a distant cousin to HIV. So we look at sexual support not only for people who are living with HIV, and that's one way we're using to break that gap that was there between people living with HIV and those who are living negatively. So we have meetings that we hold every second Saturday of the month. And in these meetings, we do a lot of learning, sharing experiences. You know, sometimes it's not about just class, and it's all about, even if I just hear a story from Aziwe and be like, oh, that's what you're dealing with, this is how you're handling it. It helps me also cope up with life. And then we also look at helping out young people who are not in our communities, not in that group, because we understand that the group will not be big enough to cover the whole of Uganda. And sometimes during the support group meetings, young people are at school or they are out working, so we do even community outreaches to reach out to the young people outside of the group. So those who are not in school, we reach out to them in their different communities where we take the services as well, including HIV testing. And those who are in schools, we always take that information to them. So we look at reaching those in and out of school, both those who can make it to the facility and those who can't. And then the other thing that we always look out for is engaging young people in different activities, including the fun bit of it, because we believe that being HIV positive does not take away the fun bit in your life, does it?
No.
No. So we engage in different activities that are fun, but also bring out the abilities in us, like music, dance, and drama. We have the sports, sometimes we go touring around. So it gives you a life that you thought you had lost. It gives you that other picture of a life that you thought it was only for people who are living without HIV. And then we also look at mentorship, I should say. Each one of us is being mentored by someone because we want to. The group looks at grooming young people who are going to be responsible in the communities, who are going to be vibrant, who are going to take up leadership to support their fellows as well, I should say.
Beautiful. So you talked a lot about a support system and the role of parents and caregivers. The foundation also does a lot of work with grannies, grandmothers. We know that in so many different communities, it was the grandmothers that were the caretakers of their children as they passed and then became parents again to young children. And now those young children, 10 years ago, are adolescents, and there is a generation gap there, and there's some different issues. I just wondered if you had any thoughts about grannies in particular, any, the role of your own granny in your lives or the grannies of other young people in your groups.
No, you go first.
I was actually telling you I should go first.
Yeah, whoever wants to go first to talk about grannies and young people living with HIV, adolescents.
Just like Josephine said in the video, we gave HIV a new face, but way back it had a different face to the extent that most of the young people were orphaned. I should say many parents died, my father inclusive. But in this situation, it leaves the grannies as the pillars of support for these young people. So these grannies really play a great role because young people only, how can I say it, depend on them. They're like the guidance they have. And sometimes young people can tend to be stubborn, I should say, growing up, adolescents, kids, and they need guidance, I should say. And with the support of the grannies, it has been really a great walkover. And yeah, we really do appreciate it. I see them around.
In South Africa, from where I'm from, in the rural areas, you get mothers going into the urban areas, leaving their kids with their grannies. And so even me, I was raised by my grandmother, but my mother obviously would come visit me and whatnot. So before they actually saw that I was actually HIV positive, I was a very sickly child. So my grandmother would be like, hey, she's always sick. I always take her to the clinic and whatnot. So my grandmother played a very great, still does, because she's still alive. She plays a great role in my life. I mean, finally, after they finally saw what was actually wrong with me, which is me being positive, she was so relieved as the fact that at least now they know what is going on. And she's always been a support system. Never mind my mom, but she's always been a support system. So grandmothers, we love y'all. Sorry.
And in shifting a bit and thinking, a big theme in the film was around treatment and how important treatment adherence, staying on treatment, is not just about accessing the treatment to begin with, but remaining on it. And it can be challenging in thinking about taking drugs for the rest of your life. And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about that and what treatment adherence, some of the challenges and what makes it so difficult.
It's very easy to get someone on treatment, very easy, but it's very hard for them to stay on treatment. As this other girl said here, that it's not easy taking that medication when you know that you are healthy. There's nothing wrong with you, you're not sick. So you just have to kind of keep yourself motivated that, hey, listen, take your ARVs, keep that virus suppressed. Because if you don't, truth be told, if you stop taking those medications, truth be told, you're going to go 6 feet underground. So you have to be realistic with the whole situation. And obviously support system, you have to go back to that. It's very important. Your mother is like, take your medication. Your friend, take your medication. So support system is very important. As I said, very easy to get someone on treatment, very difficult for them to stay on treatment, because the fact that it's not easy to make them stay on treatment I mean, you get people defaulting from the treatment whereby they go back from step 1 where they fell sick and the virus is sky high. So it's just a whole, yeah. So you just have to, I keep myself motivated.
There are a lot of barriers that sometimes force some people to stop medicine or default on it. And one of which is the pill burden, I should say. Just imagine taking medicine every day, every morning, every evening, without fail. And it's not very easy for some of us or some of the young people. And then we also have I can't just imagine walking around with a tin of medicine shaking around. There is that stigma around carrying around ARVs. So, but there are different initiatives that are in place to ensure that young people take the medicine, because whether we like it or not, it's there to stay. We have to take the medicine. So one of which, like Josephine said, is the reminder messages that are there to remind young people to take their medicines on time. And then we also have the pill cases, I should say. They're of a smaller size where someone can keep their medicines for like a day or 2 or 3, in that they can carry them around, because sometimes you feel like carrying a whole tin is hectic, and sometimes you may get caught up somewhere and you don't have the medicine with you.
Right,
Yeah.
thank you. I know we don't have that much time left, but I could talk to you both all day. So, I mean, Garvia, spoke about a very troubling, disturbing statistic that over 6,000 young women contract HIV every week. HIV is the leading cause of death still of women between 15 and 49. It's still such an issue, and such an issue for women in particular, and young women. So I'm just wondering if you can think specifically about the challenges and the needs of young women in particular, and especially when it comes to preventing HIV. Yeah, because it's still such a challenging issue, and the stakes are so high.
Yeah, I agree with you about that. It's very high around adults and girls and young women. And one of them, some of the reasons as to why it's like that is because these young women still need a lot of empowerment in voicing their sexual reproductive health rights. Because you'll find that these girls are engaged in sexual activities, but they don't know how to negotiate safer sex. They are exposed to risks. And then the other issue would be around the availability and accessibility of the preventive services for the young women. We are still in the communities where a young girl can't just walk into a facility and be like, hey, doctor, I need a condom. Their services may be there, but are they accessible for the young girls? Is there, because sometimes girls are sexually harassed. There is a lot of rape, there is a lot of defilement, but are there services for these young people, like the drugs that they give someone who has been raped or harassed to protect them from contracting the virus? And we need to have these young people understand that these services are there for them, but also make them youth-friendly. I can't just imagine walking into a facility, I was raped, or I had sex with some other guy last night, and I walked to a person of around 45 years. First thing that will come into my mind would be like, she's going to judge me.
Definitely.
So I'll be afraid to ask for the service, yet in actual sense, I need it. So we also need to make it youth-friendly. At least I would walk into a facility and be like, you know what, Aziwe, I need PrEP, or I need PrEP, because I did this, and it's the only preventive measure I have for me. Then the other aspect that is really important is economic empowerment for the adults and girls and young women. Some girls end up into sex work or commercial sex work because they're desperate, they need money. They have no skills to help them get that money the right way. So they decide at least they say, I have capital with me, so why not give it out for money? Yet in actual sense, they could have gotten a skill, a hands-on skill, that they could have used to get the money that they needed and still stay safe. So we need to do a lot of economic empowerment for the adults and girls and young women if we are to protect them.
Yeah, thank you. Aziwe, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, just a little bit. Ruth, I am hearing you. I am understanding everything you're saying, and I totally agree with you. But you also get these people who are just simply ignorant. They have the knowledge, everything is there. They have MUJHU, they have Blue Roof, everything is exposed, but they just choose to be reckless about everything. I just had to put that out there.
Then for those, still it's about helping them understand their responsibilities. Because you'll find that in some families, the parents feel like it's not their role. Like, young people have schools, we have all a role to play. These young people are in our hands, and it's upon us to guide them the right way. Just like I always say, we are young people, we know what we want, but we still need your guidance. These young people may be out there, but they still need you to direct them to the right way. They still need the information to show them the real light. Because I may be there knowing I'm enjoying my youthhood. I'm just having fun, when actual sense I'm taking my own life. So that's it.
I think as we kind of just wrap up tonight and for this evening, I mean, you've just embodied why it's so important to have young people leading the way, how you're already providing such leadership and you know what to do. We're all the best advocates for our own lives, and you know, you're demonstrating that tonight. I just want to know, what do you see for the future? Where do you want to go, and how do you think we can get there?
I've always said that allow me to be the last one who's HIV positive, allow me to be the last child who was born HIV positive, and we can only do that by just allowing the education to actually work in you, and allow Ruth and myself and many other young people to educate other young people that, listen, HIV, let it be the end. I mean, we don't want to give birth to more HIV positive people, because our job now would go to no use, really. So it's just a matter of, I just want to see people struggling, suffering from HIV. I want to see positivity going on, not HIV positive, but positivity, young people growing, and people not stigmatizing those who are HIV positive, and just, yeah.
Yeah, in addition to that, we don't want to see new infections, but we also need safe spaces for those who are living with HIV.
And we don't want to be judged.
Because we're already there, not going to just flash out of the world. So we want to see a space that is safe for young people to access the services, enjoy equal rights just like anyone else. We would also like to see a world where people have changed perceptions. Change perception around people living with HIV. Sometimes people attach HIV to promiscuity. Sometimes they attach it to recklessness. Sometimes they attach it to, maybe it's just a punishment from God. So we want to see that people have changed perspective. They look at us as people who are there, people who are responsible, people who are capable of doing different things. And that can only be done when we all take our own roles and play them. Because I understand that we all have different roles to play in this house. Some of us are good at communication. Yes, you can do the communication. Some of us have the funds, you can do the funding. Some of us have the information that you can give out to young people. Please give out the information. Then the other thing is, we will also need to do a lot of advocacy, I should say, because we would say a safe space for young people, but when there are policies that are oppressing them, we need to advocate for all of those. We are in places where we are ready to influence. We are in places where we can take action. So it's all about us playing our different roles at different levels. We know this is more like a chain. It's not complete when it's not together. So we all have different roles to play. And if we join hands, I believe that we shall see a world that is safe for every young person.
Oh,
Preach.
Beautiful, preach. Thank you so much. Thank you both so much. Give it up. Thank you both so much. Thank you all. You've been a beautiful audience.
Oh my word.
Thank you.
Thank you.